Hey everyone, it's Clive. Welcome back to the channel. So it's the day we have all been waiting for, the tour of Richard Wright's exquisite bonsai garden.
Right, so I thought good opportunity to talk about one of the trees that was behind us when we were sitting here, and that's this one over here. So this is a hawthorn, and the only reason I bought this tree, in fact I bought it from Stone Lantern in Cape Town, is because, again, like the beech we spoke about, it's a tree I'd always wanted, and you could never find them. So one of the species in South Africa, you could just never find a hawthorn. So I found this hawthorn. I was like, oh, it's a hawthorn. But it was terrible. It was all over the place. And it's done its time with me. It's the best I can do. It's going to be a literati, Brunjan style tree, and it looks fine. But ultimately, it's a tree that needs to go. So this tree is currently for sale. And the reason for that is because I took cuttings. And there's one growing in the ground that is probably 3 times the thickness. It's starting to bark up already. And I've got a better one in the ground. It's a long-term project, doesn't matter. But as a result, this one must go. And I think that's an important thing about the trees, is that we're always looking for, has it done its time? Is my connection to, no, I've got something else that can go. So that's a good example. This one here is that beech we chatted about, the apex. Cut off a big trunk that was just really ugly, and I wanted to do something really different with that. So I think the angle around about there somewhere, planted on a rock or stone or something, but that was the air layer, and you can see it's grown through in a season. So something I'm really excited to have.
That's a beautiful tree.
Yeah, very chuffed
I'm in
about
love
that.
with that tree, yeah.
It's going to be really cool. So obviously
really
that
nice.
angle will be quite nice, and I'll do that in
really
spring.
nice.
And then this is quite a cool one. I lost almost all of my, don't look too closely, there's some bad wire bite on that one, but I'm okay. What's quite interesting about maples is we worry so much about wire bite, which is good, but when a tree is really growing and it's very vigorous and you know you've got a lot of development to do, I'm not too worried about wire bite because it's going to, and these, obviously the maples, we know they bark up, and when they bark up, unless it's absolute terrible wire bite and you're not going to get a lot of growth, and you might see it through the bark, but otherwise you're never going to notice. So not something that worries me too much, but I lost all of my, I had some amazing Japanese maples, and I lost them all except one that's now on the ground, the tattoo one. And I was looking at nurseries and I saw this bigger tree, but it was 1,500 Rand for this nursery tree in a 40-litre bag, but it had a nice trunk, and I thought, oh man, 1,500. And then I looked at it, it was taller than me. And I thought, I can air layer the branches. And if I air layer the branches, I can create a group, because I had a really nice Japanese maple group. So I thought, okay, 14 branches I can air layer. So kind of, that's 100 Rand a tree. That's a bargain. So these are the branches that are air layered off the tree, and there are 9 of them in here. And I put them together. And what was cool about the air layering is that instant, but I could choose the thicknesses, and I knew I had varied thicknesses and varied movement, and the trees were all quite different. So this is 3 years later from air layer, and it's a cool little forest.
That's really, really cool, yeah.
And then this is a really cool one. So when my girls were 2012, so my youngest was 4 and my eldest would have been 7. We lived in Morningside, and we were doing a little walk around the neighborhood, and there was some trident maple trees, and they had seeds in them. And I said to the girls, let's pick some seeds. You can plant the seeds and we'll plant some trees. And, oh, fantastic. And each one of them got a black plastic sort of grain flat. They each had a tray of maple seeds. They watered them, they grew them, and they each had a tray. And over the years, they would cut them once or twice a year, and they just grew these trees. And then finally one year, and they survived through the cancer years. And then one year I decided, let's put them together and create a forest. I put it together, and that was just before one of those watering incidents. And the bigger maples that are left here are the ones that survived. So it's a kind of a legacy group. My girls, they know it's their group. And you'll notice, well, you probably won't see it now, but this is a celtis, there's some elms, but they're all trees that the birds, they're self-seeded. So it's literally some of the bigger maples that come from the girls that planted the seeds back in 2012, and other trees that grew in those flats through the years. So it's a bit of a mixed forest. But that obviously is really sentimental to me. and my girl's forest. But that's one of the few things that kind of survived with me.
That's really cool. I love that tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to show us around your,
Yeah, sure.
your beautiful garden?
Sure,
Yeah.
with pleasure. So on this bench here, mainly sort of smaller little trees, showing a couple of marmays. I found that I get much better results with these little trees growing in. I let them grow through. In fact, I recently just took them all out. I cleaned up the gravel, but you get really good growth by letting them grow in a little a container like this. A couple of holes drilled through the bottom, water drains through, but it's enough to keep them moist, especially when it's hot. And you'll see quite a lot of the trees have got the moss removed. I do that with anything where I feel that the water is kind of sitting a little bit. I'll do that. So that's kind of this bench here. So I'm not going to go ahead and discuss all the trees, but some quite special things.
Really cool.
This is a Tracheospermum asiaticum. Something that most people wouldn't have seen is that Asiatic jasmine. That's quite a cool one.
This angle.
The Taxus, a yew. I've got two. I also bought this one because I'd never seen a yew in South Africa before. Not a great tree, but I've got two growing in the garden that have thickened up quite nicely, and those, when those come out of the garden, this one will go.
There it is, one of my favorite trees.
Oh, I love that tree. I absolutely love that tree. So I was lucky enough to get that. Terry imported it, and he imported it for himself, but he landed up with anthracnose, quite a bad anthracnose problem at his home, and he was worried about a tree like that and losing it. So he decided to sell it, and I was lucky enough to be able to get my hands on it. So yeah, that is one of my favorite trees.
Gorgeous, gorgeous.
And you know what's amazing about this tree? And again, that's the learning from trees, buying trees, learning from trees. All the rules say you can't have a whole lot of branches coming out of the same place in the trunk, and you can't have a whole lot of branches coming out of the same place in the trunk. And this tree is built on branches coming out of the same place in the trunk. So yes, it is a very different style, and it doesn't matter that it's swollen. But some of the best trees are trees where the rules are broken.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot from this. I've also learned a lot about starting with thicker, letting trunks grow, and then cutting them right off. You can see a couple of places where it's been cut, and starting from there. So, yeah, as I said, you know, if you can, and that's the other thing is you look at all the trees you've got, and you think, but if I spend a couple of $1,000 on a tree, that's a lot of money on a tree. But how long is it going to take for me to get to that? How much is my time worth? Am I ever going to see a tree like that?
Yeah, I
And how
also
much
always
am I-
think it's important to know the guidelines, I think, when starting out.
For sure.
But then, like any artistic form, you got to break those guidelines, you know?
Absolutely.
And I think that's where you're going to move on.
Absolutely. So yeah, so a bunch of really special trees here. This is a cutting. This is literally a cutting. It's
Very
a
cool.
Kurumi azalea, cutting from a tree in the neighborhood. I asked if I could take cuttings, and literally just 100% natural. It's never been wired. In a Richard Kearney pot. So I like playing with little things. As you can see, I like bigger trees,
Really
but I
cool.
love little things too. So yeah, a bunch of little things on this bench. It gets quite nicely shaded. This is quite cool. Also something that not many people have seen.
Oh, wow, beautiful.
This is
And
a
it's even in
Japanese
flower now.
flowering apricot,
Wow.
Prunus mume, and the smell that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. That is
Hey?
very nice. Wow.
How
You
amazing
should,
is that?
If you could put that in a bottle
Hey?
today.
That is amazing,
That
and
is
it's always the first
beautiful.
one to flower. So by the
Wow.
way, every single thing gets wired in. Every single one of my trees gets wired into pots, and that's critical. Even if you think you don't need to, you really should.
Yeah.
Why? Because just the fact that the stability, the tiny little roots don't move, they grow better. Your tree's always going to flourish. Wire your trees into pots. But yeah, I love that. So that came from a nursery here. And what's quite difficult is very straight sort of trunk. Obviously, it's one of the few deciduous trees where deadwood is encouraged. But I can't go and put lots of big movement on a tree where the trunk is just a nice, easy sort of flow. So that's kind of what I try and
So
do.
where did you actually get that?
So there's a nursery in out Killarney Way,
Okay.
Ostroflora actually.
Nice.
Yeah, very nice. But a lot of what's on this bench is cuttings or air layerings.
Very
This
cool.
is air layer, little seedlings started, an air layer from a much older tree.
Very cool. I definitely think we need to do a spring garden tour.
Oh, you have to.
If Richard's open to that.
These are quite cool. This is a little chochobai. It's a Japanese flowering
Very
quince,
beautiful.
but the small version. I got a mother plant, and if you've got a cutting, if you're in South Africa and you've got a cutting or bought one recently, 10 to 1, it comes from the mother plant of this tree.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, so bunch of projects, and I've got lots and lots and lots of projects. I love groupings. I love little seedlings. So these are all from seed, little maples, grouping them, and a lot of projects like this, they will fuse, and then I can actually cut off some of the trunks. So I've got that nice little base, but I ground laid that Zelkova, quite a nice big Zelkova that I ground layered for a much better base. There's all sorts here. This was an air layering. That was a seed. Another air layer. This is a root. This was literally a root from an elm. When I repotted the tree, and you can see where the root was cut off. So literally, it was just that ugly root, and I thought, well, let me see if I can get it to grow, and it grew. And
So roughly, how long did that take you for all those guys starting out?
this is 3 years.
Yeah, so in
Just
3
3 years.
years.
Just 3 years. Yeah, it's amazing how quick it is. I mean, this is an air layer, Hawthorn, pyracantha, and that's only about 3 years from air layer. So air layering really, really is so quick. And seeds. I mean, you can see what happens with seeds. This is a little air layer. I lost my Cotoneastas. This is the microphylla, the small leaf variety. And this was a commercial tree that I bought. And it's a long trunk, this typical little long trunk with a little ball on the top. But I only bought it because I wanted to air layer it to create a little show-in tree. And this has come so far. It's only been removed from the mother tree 2.5 seasons.
Sure.
So amazing what you can do
So it's
from very, very... And what's interesting, look at this. So this was the mother plant. I took cuttings from this little tree, and this is one of the cuttings from that tree.
That's incredible.
But the cool thing about cuttings is that you can really manipulate the trunks and create something quite nice. So I did a bunch of these, and this one now I'm selling because I now
Very
have
cool.
too many. So yeah, cuttings are so quick and easy. It's amazing what you can do.
What type of fertilizer do you use?
So I use liquid fertilizer at the moment.
Okay.
I did use a lot of those tea bags and a lot of the pellets.
Yeah.
But the problem is my garden is now open, and as you saw with the
With
interview,
all the dogs, yeah.
4 dogs, and they
That's the
love
problem I have, yeah.
any of those things. So every second week in the growing season, and I will alternate between an organic fertilizer like Seagrow, Nitrosol, any of them. I really don't mind which one. And then 2 weeks later, I'll do a multi-feed P or a chemical fertilizer. And I find on that sort of regimen, I get really, really good growth.
Yeah, you can see.
Yeah. So yeah, that's about it in this section. This is quite cool. These have come with me a very long time. It's a blue Colorado, blue spruce.
Yeah, it's something you don't often see.
And these were cuttings that I took about 20 years ago. And the cuttings apparently cuttings don't take. Well, they did. And somehow they survived. And finally did something with them. They look terrible. But there's one that's planted in the garden here. And that will hopefully be a bigger tree at some point in time. But they really are beautiful. That was the same size as those trees in that little group 4 years ago.
Wow.
Before it went in. So starting from scratch again, I really did, you try and find everything.
Really nice.
So these are all Celtis sinensis that I've plucked from the garden, all from this garden. So these are all birds that have eaten the seeds,
That's awesome.
trees have grown. So every single one of these trees, and this has only been a group for 2.5 years now.
That's incredible.
2.5
Just
years.
shows you, hey?
So free.
Yeah.
Free bonsai.
That's what I also keep telling people. Like your trident maples, I mean, those will grow in 2 seasons. You could have a
Absolutely.
forest like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So literally, and it's free, absolutely free.
Yeah.
So there's lots in the garden. Most of the plants in the garden, this is a little myrtle, are growing on for something. So this is quite cool. So this is one of the hotter areas of the garden. Lots of full sun here. And remember I told you about those seeds that I brought
Beautiful.
back from the
Yeah.
States. So that's
Wow,
one of the
is this it?
Japanese black pines.
My
And this was in a much bigger container. But this is now, 26 years old.
Sure.
The bark is lovely. I mean, I learned a lot. I didn't do the right things. A lot of techniques were wrong. And I've kept the tree obviously because it's so sentimental. But actually, it's become
That's a gorgeous tree.
it's become something quite nice now. Yeah.
Very, very nice.
Yeah, a nice little rehu. Those come for free. Little pots, imported pots and nanban. But yeah, I love that tree. Very, very
Beautiful.
sentimental. And then here are some of the first olives I ever dug in Rustenburg. So now we're talking 1997.
Sure.
This was a much bigger olive, tall olive, two big things. And the tree was up there. And then many years ago, I decided that
Sure.
I wanted this. And it survived everything, almost died. And I started it from scratch. So here's a really good, 4 years ago, this tree had not a single branch in it. Literally, it was this trunk up to here.
That's
There was
incredible.
no branch, nothing. So this entire tree has been created in 4 years.
That's incredible. Wow.
We think that
And, I mean,
olives are
look at that
slow.
carving. I think Richard, in my opinion, is probably the best guide carving in South Africa.
It's very sweet. Thank you.
But on a serious note. I
So
mean, just
this-
look at that.
This is another one. So this is also, this was a year after that one, 1998. And this was a much, much bigger tree, and most of the tree died off. There was some at the top, and I decided to cut it right back. And so that tree is now called the Scream, because this looks like that painting, the Scream.
Cool. Yeah.
So those two olives have been around. But again, this one, there was not a single branch. I literally started with a trunk. None of the branches were there 4 years ago.
Sure.
4 years
That's
ago.
incredible.
So this is also a bit of a story like that. This was from the same dig as this tree, also Rustenburg. And I loved it because it was sort of multi-trunk. But all the foliage, as you can see, this is where the foliage was only at the ends. There was nothing on the inside of the tree. And I didn't really know what to do with the tree. There was this big branch coming out here at the front, and the front was here. And it was just in this huge, big earth farm, compost farm, a container. And then one year I decided, okay, it's time to do something with this tree. It survived. I owe it that much. Cut everything off it. Carved it all back. There wasn't not a single branch, nothing on the tree, just these trunks. And I carved back what I didn't want because I saw this tree. This is the back that we're looking at now. The front is that side. But I just saw something in it with these sort of dead
Really gorgeous.
gins sticking out the top. So, yeah. And then the only other tree that I still have, so there were four, I've only got 4 trees five, that one there. And then this one. This was a tree I collected in Rustenburg as well. It was
Sure.
just a thinner sort of tree. And this was the first demonstration I did in 2021 when I started Bonsai again.
Sure, that's incredible.
So Kathy, middle of COVID,
Yeah.
she had a tent, a marquee up, and I put this group together.
Oh, cool.
And I'd seen this design by Jan Tiens Klein. He's unfortunately passed on now, but a Belgian bonsai artist who put together a coniferous forest using slates like this. And I saw that many years ago in a Bonsai Today, and I thought, Bonsai Focus, and I thought, one day I want to create a forest like that. So that was my trial run, because he put together a cypress, bald cypress, one of those. So I wanted to do it with a swamp cypress forest, because I had a really nice one that I lost. So I'll take you there just now, but this was the trial run for that forest, which I think has come along nicely.
Really cool. I actually want to come and just show them from this angle where the sun's a bit
Oh, sure, yeah. That's the
better.
back, but it's all
But
good.
yeah, so I'll show you from the back, just so you can have a better view of the size of it. So this is the back of the tree.
So groups forests were a really quick way for me to be able to get something decent very quickly. So that's a tip for you out there. If you're looking to create something with very mediocre material, a group is so easy. It really, really is easy. And you get something quite quickly. I'm sure the center tree of this is a decent tree, but the others were really little negligible material, nursery stock, easily available.
Really nice, really nice.
So the garden kind of grew on, and the grass we just added on as I got more and more trees. And this was a group I put together. I was very lucky to get this marble, so it's very much a Chinese sort of penjing type style.
Really nice, sure.
I'm sure you've seen them. The open space represents the water. It looks very dirty now this time of the year. In fact, I've left this forest because I've got a demonstration in 2 weeks' time at Suikerbos,
Oh, cool.
where I've been asked to do something about a landscape with rocks. And I actually put this together. The demonstration was a competition, an artisans competition, a year and a half ago, and won the competition. But I had 3 hours, only 3 hours, unassisted, to put this together. I added 5 trees since then. It's English elm. But what I'm going to do is take this along for the demonstration and do a cleanup. So,
Beautiful.
and help people to understand what you do with moss, maybe move 1 or 2 of the rocks, and then a cleanup of the trees. How do we maintain this, getting the moss off the trunks, exposing some of the roots. But I think that'll be quite a nice, different demonstration. But that's the reason I've left. I haven't cleaned anything. I haven't taken leaves off. I've done nothing because it needs to look as bad as possible for the start of the demonstration.
Yeah. And this pine over here.
Oh,
I mean,
geez.
look at this. How did we nearly miss this thing?
Yeah. So so nobody's been importing for a very long time, unfortunately, and they do tend to be expensive, but they are worth it. But the first time that I saw trees that were imported, this tree was available, and I looked at the price of the tree. I looked at it for Japanese white pine. I was like, oh man, my entire bonsai life I've wanted a Japanese white pine. We can't get them in South Africa. I've really wanted one, and it's a Miyajima, which means that the white pine is grafted onto black pine stocks as a black pine. And normally the graft union is quite ugly with these, and and I saw this tree, and there was a video underneath it, and I thought, oh my goodness, I would love that tree. But the amount of money, I couldn't justify that. There's just no ways I could justify that. And what's quite interesting is I'd wanted a couple of other trees, and when I added up what those trees were going to cost, it was pretty much the price of this one tree. So I got hold of the importer, and I said, listen, I've changed my mind. Is that tree still available? Because I would like to buy it. And he said, no, unfortunately, it's gone. So the decision was made for me. And then a year ago, I saw it in a collection in Cape Town, and it wasn't looking very good. And I recognized the tree instantly, and I said, you must have bought that tree. And he said, yeah, the tree doesn't like where I live. I've done everything I possibly can. It's just getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And 2 days later, I got a phone call to say, if you're interested in the tree, I'm willing to sell it for what I bought it for.
Wow.
But now that's a risk, because the tree was not in great condition. It wasn't in great health. So I thought, okay, it's a risk I'm prepared to take. I got onto Instagram, got a hold of a couple of people in Japan who I know, some apprentices, and said, listen, what do you think? And they said, it's worth taking a chance. So the first thing I did, it was in a much smaller container. The first thing I did was to take it out and I put it into this big crate, which has probably got about triple the amount of media. And I used pure pumice. So very, very free draining. I wanted to encourage root growth. And that was a year ago. And if I look at the quality of the foliage, it did lose some of the smaller branching inside. But if I look at the quality of the foliage and how it's come by, the tree has bounced back incredibly. So I think this next season I'm going to see some good candle extensions, but I'm now going to style the tree now in winter. And part of the problem with these is with the Miyajima, is the white pine branching becomes extremely brittle. So to pull this down, I need to pull this branch down into this position here. I'm going to have to wrap it. It is going to crack, but because it's wrapped, and apparently if they stop cracking, that's when you should be worried.
That's when you should be worried. Yeah.
But some cracking isn't too much of a problem. But I am going to have to pull this right down to get all of it, to get it right down, because the trunk, it's exceptional. It's phenomenal. So I can't wait. But that's very exciting for me.
Yeah. But exciting. Pines are very cool and very forgiving.
Cool. Here's that big beech.
Oh, cool.
So I'm ground layering this one.
Oh, wow.
Because the base was so bad. I'm ground layering it, and you can see these are all roots. So it's been 2 years. I've given it 2 years. Last year I went in and I just cut some sections that are calloused over. But what I've done here is I have layered this bottom branch because I want a triple trunk. So this will be my second trunk, and this will be the third trunk. And then the top, I reduced that top with the part that you've seen. And I mean, you can see how this is growing now. So I'm very excited. This will be separated this coming spring. But the beech, and this is that big maple that I bought for 1,500 rand and air layered all the branches off.
Really cool.
But
Sure.
this tree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of these branches have been grafted on.
Okay.
So I've basically created a tree. In fact, these scars here are where the thread grafts were removed.
Okay.
So I drilled through there for that branch. I drilled through there for that branch. Drilled through the back for this one. Drilled through there for the branch at the back. Drilled through there for that branch. So the entire tree has been created from grafts.
Sure. Yeah, you set
So I
your
think
branch
that's going
so
to be
nicely.
quite a nice. So the front's going to be here. We're going to move it a little bit, but I think it's going to be quite a nice Japanese maple.
Very nice.
All of that, and in a very short space of time. That's 3.5 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just shows you.
Yeah. And this over here, it looks terrible now, just the time of year, but this is the actual. So the olive was the trial run with this sort of planting, the slate with this ribbon walling built up, and I put this together for a demonstration of Pretoria bonsai kai. And what's interesting about these swampies, these swamp cypress, is 2 of them, this one here and this one here, were nursery stock 4 years ago, and you can see the branching, it's amazing. And this one as well. But all of the others were 3 swampies that I bought. They were tall trees, and I air layered them each one 3 times. So I got 3 trees out of 2. So 6 trees out of 2 trees. And you can see the bigger ones are the bottom layers, the next size up, and then one size up on that. But what I saw Jan put was a dead tree in the forest as well, which I really loved. So this was a spruce that had died a couple of years ago and it just happened to be hanging around. I thought that's perfect. So this needs a clean up now. Just waiting for the last of the leaves to come off, and then this will be cleaned up. I need to wire what needs to be wired. But yeah, I quite love this.
Really beautiful.
It's come along quite nicely.
It's very natural looking.
Yeah, and in summertime, once this is all cleaned up, you really get the feeling that you lost in this giant forest.
Yeah, of course.
I love it. The moss and the.
So how long would something like this take you to wire?
This actually, it looks like it's quite a big job, but it really isn't. There's not
Yeah.
tons that needs to be wired. I would say this is probably 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
It's probably what this would take. Yeah. So that's loading. The hardest part, obviously, is just I can't lift it on my own. So it's just getting someone to help me get it inside.
Well, I live down the road, so just shout
You
if you
just
need a hand.
admitted that on the camera.
Hey,
Thank you,
I'm
Clive.
always willing to help.
Thank you.
And then this is the one you recently posted on your
Yes.
Instagram.
Yeah, so this one, I can't believe how lucky I am to find this. It's somebody's big part of the bonsai fraternity. He's been growing bonsai for many years and has specialized in growing trees either in the ground or in big containers and growing them on. So this tree I think has been grown somewhere between 12 and 18 years.
Sure.
And all he ever did was
is
prune it
quite
really
something.
hard once a season. So it's a cork bark elm, and the bark is absolutely magnificent. And so the story behind this tree, he doesn't sell trees, he doesn't, that's not what he does. But we did a trade. So
cool.
a bunch of trees that I was lucky enough to get my hands on that aren't freely available, I traded him so he could grow them on in the ground or in bigger containers. So yeah, trading is it's such a cool thing to do, actually. You know?
Not,
I've got this.
Not
I
many
don't have
people
that.
do it around here, which is sad.
So the nice thing about this tree is it's got two fronts. So I burnt the plastic container. So there's one there, and here's the other one. So it's exactly opposite, and
That's
the tree
incredible.
is pretty much as good from both sides. So I love doing that, actually. I love trying to create trees that aren't just single dimensional, single faceted, trees that can be viewed from all angles, and trees that have more than one front. And this one is that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, there's that beautiful hackberry.
Oh,
That is gorgeous.
yeah, so there's a story. So that is a tree that was imported from Taiwan 4 years ago. It won bronze prize. I've got a certificate for it
Sure.
at a big Taiwanese national show. And in Taiwan, they are defoliated. It's a Celtis sinensis. They're defoliated 4 or 5 times a year because you can with that climate. And the person who bought it, it was imported for him actually. He bought 2. This one that was really ramified, and another one that he was growing on a little bit still. And he did an incredible job of increasing the ramification. But unfortunately, didn't do much winter pruning, didn't prune back hard in winter time. So the tree, unfortunately, and defoliated 2-3 times a season, which is a little bit too much in South Africa. So that's a good analogy with Taiwan, same tree, 4 or 5 times in a summer. Our summer, I wouldn't defoliate a tree like that more than once.
Yeah.
In a summer, just just know your hood, read the room. So unfortunately, a lot of the internal branching died off. It didn't get enough light, and the tree has almost grown a little bit too big for the original scale. So what I did this year, instead of removing some of the dead stuff and trying to encourage growth from within, I know that that's a very long way to very bad results. I kind of figured I'm going to cut it really hard back and start the fine branching again. It's going to go into a crate, so it'll go into a wooden crate, which will give it about double the amount of soil that it's in now, give it a good chance to come back really strongly, and I think it'll look better ultimately, but it's I'll probably put it back 2 or 3 years, and that's bonsai. I'm okay with that.
That's awesome.
Stunning tree.
Can we take a walk around here just to show them on the other side?
Yeah, so here we are. I've also learnt a hang of a lot from this tree. Again, if you look at the branching, so you can see that every single part of this tree has been wired. Everything has been wired. And what's really interesting here is, I mean, look at this here. Those are scars, that's wire bite. But because it has been, I mean, you can see here, because, and you'll see it on a lot of the branches, but again, we get really worried about the wire bite and deciduous trees, and we shouldn't. On the fine ends of branches, for sure. But I mean, you can see, but every single part of this tree has been wired. And what's interesting here is that, again, an apex, which is the strongest part of the tree, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 branches coming out of the same place in the tree. But people are like, oh, I'm going to get this really horrible, ugly swelling. Look how thick the branches are.
Yeah.
There's no such thing there. A lot of things that people would say, there's a bar branch there. Look at those, 2 from the same place, same angles. I've learned a lot about branch placement. I've learned a lot about branches coming out to you at the front. This is the front of the tree, and look at this little branch. They're coming straight out at you, and low down, but it works. It's incredible.
And it's a much shorter branch at the bottom where,
Correct.
a lot of people are scared to have those short branches.
So I really have, and again, in my lifetime, I wouldn't create a tree like this from scratch, and I just don't have that much time and available, like a number of years left. And how amazing. But the problem with a tree like this is it just demands so much time. That's why the original owner let it go. He just didn't have enough time to do the tree justice. So I know that once I start wiring this tree, that's going to be a 2-day job to wire tertiary branches. And it means that I can't, how many of these trees can I keep? Trees this big. But yeah, I feel very, very honored to own it. Absolutely amazing. It's a hand-painted Taiwanese pot, quite a famous Taiwanese ceramicist. Very, very different compared to what we have here. But I mean, the painting on the top as well, the gilding, is just really, really beautiful.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. And then let's end off with this last tree over here.
This is this one.
Something quite incredible.
So this is the Hunchback of Notre Dame. It is the most ugly,
the sumo wrestler.
Grotesque sumo. It was imported. Again, I'm very lucky to get my hands on this one. And by somebody, old bonsai artist in Japan, who was scaling down. And a bunch of the trees were bought, and I managed to pick this one. But part of the reason they would let go is just a lot of scarring on the trees. One of those trees that were grown probably around a wire frame where hundreds of little seedlings are wired onto a wire frame, and they're fused together to form these massive trunks. But the tree had a big hole in the back here, big hole down the middle, another hole. And so the last 3 years have really been a journey in healing. So you'll see that a lot of the biggest scars, in fact, if I had to show you a picture of this tree, it literally, there would be holes everywhere. In fact, the front even worse. And it's calloused over. And one of the best ways to callus a big hole like this, I've filled it with cement, and then I've grafted these little whips onto it. And you can see in one season they've taken incredibly well. And what will happen here, and obviously in time, these trunks are going to swell and they'll eventually fuse together, and there'll be the roots will fuse as well. So it's going to be a continuous, give another 5 years or so, and this scar will be completely gone. Once they've started to grow thicker and it's part of the tree, I will then cut off. But for now, it's feeding lots of energy into the tree, which is really fantastic. But this, again, lots of grafts. These little root grafts, I've got grafts that are going to cover over the scar at the top here, grafts at the top that have added on. It's the back of the tree that we're currently looking at. But now you can imagine what's really important is that the bottom branches of this tree are at least that sort of diameter or thickness. It's a tree this big is never going to look good with small little branches at the bottom. So that's the reason I've left these on. I repotted it last year. Very tough to find a big enough container. It is a training pot. It will need to be in something much more shallow ultimately. Don't know where I'm going to find that pot. But it took a bit of a hammering last year. It was a hard repot and did quite a lot of grafting. It still grew well, but this next season it's going to absolutely explode. So I'm hoping that I'll get probably 2/3 of the way with the thickness of the primary branching at the bottom.
That's incredible. This
Yeah.
is next level bonsai. No one else, I think, not many people in South Africa are doing this sort of stuff. So it's really cool.
There are
to
not
see.
enough people.
Yeah,
There are
not enough.
people.
There's a lot of people doing it, but not enough.
Not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. Really
So
appreciate you sharing the garden to everyone.
Thank you very
Awesome.
much. Thank you for your time.
Anytime. Cheers, cheers.
So, I hope you all enjoyed it. See you all next week, Saturday. Have a beautiful day.